So the myth is that they cause autism. In reality, vaccines do not cause autism. Kids with autism never make eye contact. Third myth, autism only happens in boys.
Hello, this is Dr. Nita Lwanga. I'm here with my friend, Dr. Vladimir Barayev, who is going to talk to us a little bit about diagnosing autism. Dr. Barayev is a board-certified pediatrician with extensive experience in developmental care, with a particular focus in autism. He practices in Staten Island, New York, and his practice is a DPC, direct primary care practice. And with that, he's able to provide his patients with more personalized, holistic care, and he's able to spend more time with his patients. His approach emphasizes supportive partnership with families, and he incorporates the 6 pillars of health, which include sleep, nutrition, physical activity, relationships, coping skills, and environmental management. Dr. Barayev, thank you so much for agreeing to be on this show. I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to us and to share your knowledge with us about autism. And I'm very excited for my audience to learn from you because people who specialize in autism are very rare. So I think my first question is going to be, why did you choose to specialize in autism? What was your journey from doing general pediatrics to now focusing in autism?
First of all, I want to say it is my honor to be joining you today because Dr. Lwanga, after the time that I have spent knowing you and speaking with you, like your passion and dedication to medicine and optimal health and justice and fairness have been very evident to me since day one. And any time that I get to spend on this earth communicating with individuals such as yourself is only time well spent that I find. Now, how did I end up being a pediatrician specializing in autism? That's an excellent question. It really stemmed to back to my journey with direct primary care, the corporatization of healthcare, which everyone laments these days, including Mr. Luigi Mangione, has shown everyone what U.S. healthcare lacks. We're the wealthiest country in the world, and we have very unimpressive outcomes to show for it. So the direct primary care movement has come in its place, allow doctors more autonomy, more freedom to advocate for what's right for their patients, to give them more respect, more time, more of a compassionate ear to listen. And the population that felt the least heard, least listened to, and least understood because of their significant needs and all of their interfaces with the healthcare system on a regular basis is the population with kids with autism. The amount of research that goes into studying autism and the resources available to understanding it, I found that in my general pediatric residency, we learned some about autism, but not to the extent at which I practice it today, and understanding all the factors that go into a person's life and just appreciating autism for what it truly is. I don't only talk about autism from a medical standpoint, also bring it up from a philosophical standpoint about like our shared humanity and how autism has played a role in shaping society everywhere we look.
Wow, that is so fascinating. After doing your pediatrics training, what did you do specifically to branch out into focusing on caring for individuals with autism? Did you have to take additional training? Please tell us a little bit more about that journey.
So once I opened my direct primary care practice and I started practicing in a more holistic way, focusing on all the pillars of health with families and spending more time with them, I then started hearing feedback that there were not enough options available for autism evaluations for kids to receive services and therapies because these are very time consuming and energy intensive evaluations to do. That was like my starting point. Like when I took a training course on how to administer the gold standard ADOS tests for autism, that got my curiosity started. And my probably my biggest flaw and my biggest strength at the same time is that when I get curious about something, I just fall down a rabbit hole and I keep going and going. I really enjoy doing the evaluations. The families were getting a lot of benefit from it. There was so much of a win scenario. The centers that were able to help the kids were able to get their services covered by insurance because of my evaluation. So there were just so many wins that were going all around, and it was such a boon to my practice. I'm going to keep doing this. So then I branched out. I started helping kids with autism and ADHD, other developmental things, and then I melded the two worlds of holistic care and autism care together, and here we are today.
Wow, wow. I really love that. And I love how you decide to make your practice more holistic. I think a lot of us, as we go into medical school, we have an idea of what medicine is that's not exactly what we thought it was going to be. But I think a lot of us have that desire to spend more time with our patients, be able to talk to them about other things that impact their health beyond just prescribing medications. So I really applaud you for leaning into that and following your heart. I think it takes a lot of courage to do things a little bit differently. But I think the payoff or the reward for doing things differently is huge, not just for yourself personally, but for society and for your patients. Your patients need you, and you're an answer to their cries, you're an answer to their prayers. So you doing the work that you're doing is helping people. So I really applaud you for doing that and doing it in a way that's authentic to yourself. And with that, since you focus on autism, what are some of the signs or symptoms that parents might notice early on that might clue them into the possibility that their child might have autism?
Yeah, so that's an excellent question. It's something that a lot of families ask me on a regular basis. But basically, in the grand scheme of things, the word autism comes from a Greek word which means focus on the self. So if you understand the definition of the term autism, then you can see it from that perspective of focus on the self. That kids, even small children with autism, they may make eye contact. Like I'm talking about infants under the age of 12 months. They may look you in the eyes, or they may not, and they may respond to their name, or they may not, or they may just be responding to a sound that they hear, or they may not. But the key component to the autism is that it's not a consistent ability to stay engaged in the social world around them, that they
Mhm.
prefer to be in an isolated bubble in their own world. So, in a small infant, what that might look like, because you've seen one person with autism, you've only seen one person with autism, it's very a diverse set of findings across different kids, is that from the age of 6 to 12 months of age, right, they won't necessarily have a social smile. So you smile at them, they're not really smiling back at you. You calling their name over and over, they're not really looking at you. They're continuing doing what they're doing, not really paying attention to the name, even though they can hear just fine. They just refuse to look to the sound of their name. The other earlier signs that we detect with autism is the ability to point to request things. So, small infant and toddler with autism, when they want something, like the skill of pointing develops at around 12 months of age to request things like, I want that cup of juice or that cup of milk over there. And kids with autism really struggle with that ability. So instead of pointing, the parents have told me this over and over. My child doesn't really point to request that thing. What they do instead is they'll pull my finger and take me to what they want. Or they'll just have a tantrum and scream, and I have to be a mind reader to figure out what they want. Speech delays. It's probably the reason that most families come for an initial evaluation. The fact that their child is not making progress with their language skills from 12 months and onward. Speech regression. So they had some words around 9 to 12 months, mama, dad, baba, and they stopped saying all those words altogether completely. And those that didn't come back for months and months. And there was no progress. Preferring to play in isolation versus engaging with other kids their age, right? So babies may not engage with one another directly all the time, but they don't mind sitting around other babies and playing near them. But kids, as they grow older to toddlerhood and young childhood, is always preferring to be on their own
Mm.
and not with the family or not at the dinner table or not with peers of their own age. So those are some of the earliest signs that we look for when it comes to, and of course there are others things that are more directly linked to autism. So things like flapping their hands frequently, like it can be normal for a small toddler to flap their hands here and there intermittently with excitement, but if that is something that persists over time, it starts to go into the abdominal range. Scripting, so repeating things that they've heard in movies or on TV shows out of context to what's going on. So you and I are having a conversation right now, and I'll start going off on lose your voice, and repetitively saying the same thing. Lose your voice was a child who heard the movie The Little Mermaid from Disney, and Ursula, the sea urchin, said, "You're going to lose your voice in return for getting." So the child heard that and just said, "Lose your voice," repetitively. Toe walking can be normal in some infants under the age of 2 years old. However, persistent toe walking and having a lot of sensory sensitivities, being very rigid, having difficulty transitioning from one activity to another, all of these things added together show the constellation of autism when we try to diagnose it because no single feature is enough to let you know that a person is autism. Because when you have an autistic brain and you see the world from an autistic mind, you have the full constellation of things, right? And the challenges and the struggles that come with it. You technically don't fit the criteria for an autism diagnosis unless you also have difficulties in some domain of life as well. So if you're doing well in all domains of life, and then you have some features of autism, that is not clinically considered to be an autism spectrum disorder.
It's fascinating. And unfortunately, it seems like the incidence or the rate of autism and also ADHD, we'll talk about that a little bit later on, but it seems to be going up. And when I think about young children that I know, it's interesting you mentioned all these different behaviors that children tend to grow out of. But you're right, there are some children who continue to maintain some activities that are not typical for their age. And then you talked about difficulties with various domains of life. Can you, for those who are not in the medical field, explain what that means in layman's terms?
Of course. So the first, I want to talk about the incidence and the reported numbers that have been going up with autism, and then I will tackle, in layman's terms, what it means is difficulties in the different domains of life. The reported rates of autism diagnoses have been going up in the literature over the past several decades. It is not because there are more people now with autism than there used to be. What actually has happened is, as human beings, we have always been a very neurodiverse species. Meaning everyone has a unique point of view. If you took a graph and look at human heights, where with the smallest on one end and the tallest on the other end, most people would fall within the 5 foot to 6 foot tall range. There are other people who are much taller than 6 feet and other people who are much shorter than 5 feet. That is called the normal distribution of human height. Then the way that our brains work and our design also fall into this pattern. That doesn't mean that tall or shorter people are necessarily bad or something is wrong with them. It just means they are less common, rare. The same is true for people who have autism and ADHD. Doesn't mean that their brains are bad or broken. It means that the way that they perceive the world from a neurodiverse perspective is just less common than neurotypical people. And our world today, with sitting down at a desk, doing work, living indoors, having mostly a sedentary lifestyle, is not how nature created us. We were evolved as a species to be an outdoor creature living on the savannas of Africa. That's where we evolved. And there you had to hunt for your food. You had to hunt an antelope. You had to find berries and fruits to eat and know which ones were dangerous and to kill you, which ones were not. And you had to sort the food, cook the food, and divide it up equally. You have to have your early days of your barterers, your market people and salespeople. You have to have your chiefs that would lead the tribe. You have to have all these roles. People with autism and ADHD existed back then, and their roles in society were uniquely adapted for their function. So autism is very talented at pattern recognition, would know this berry will kill you and this one will keep you alive. So let's eat this berry tribe. The groups that didn't have any autistic people in their midst missed out on that news insight and they died off, so their genes did not get passed down to today's generation. Same thing with ADHD. They are very good at hunting and seeing animals in the wild and spearing those antelope. The groups that did not have anyone with ADHD in them also died off because they couldn't get any meat and they didn't evolve their brains to a level where they could specialize and invent new technologies that would allow civilization to thrive. Today, we have streamlined, we have fine-tuned, and we have opened our eyes to exactly what it means to have autism, because many people with autism do not continue to have the deficits and challenges throughout their life. They blend into neurotypical society because they are taught from a young age to not really be themselves, to try to fit in and don't fit out, to not do what comes more naturally to you or behave in a way that comes more naturally to you. So there are some internal struggles that persist, but on the outside, it appears they're doing well. So this is what I mean by deficits. It appears they're doing well in school, good grades, universities, PhDs, getting MDs, whatever have you, doing well personally, getting married, having children, raising families, doing well within society, so contributing to their community and having friends and social circles and all that. There are no deficits in those areas that are obvious. There are deficits, there's just not obvious deficits that occur. They have a lot of internalizing anxiety and depression symptoms from having undiagnosed autism their whole life and not understanding why they feel so different, why they're struggling. Because the criteria for how we diagnose autism has changed. It used to be broken down that there were people who had PDD-NOS, there were people who had Asperger's syndrome, and there are people who had severe autism. Right? The one that everyone thinks of when they think of autism is someone sitting in a corner somewhere with their ears covered, rocking back and forth, and repetitively saying something to themselves. Like a severe manifestation of autism. That is the same condition clinically that an individual who has more milder symptoms has, where they may just be excellent at doing things with math and science, but have a lot of trouble with social skills and making friends. Like what they would call, I'm trying to be pop culture here, the geeky kid in school, someone like Steve Jobs who bring a snake into his school and think it was cool to show everyone his snake and get in trouble for it, not having the social awareness or understanding, can't bring a giant snake into your school, my friend. So the incidence that has gone up in the numbers is not a reflection of change of us as a humanity. We understand the linkages. What does drive, what causes the diagnosis of autism in people is that their genotypes, the genetics they were born with. So a brother and a sister have a much higher odds of one of them having autism if the other one has autism compared to someone with an unrelated person, to the general population. Two twins have much higher odds of having both having autism than a brother and a sister would, or two brothers would that are non-twins. If you have an uncle or an aunt that is on the autism spectrum, this is a second degree relative now, further away from your genetic lineage, your odds of having autism are 3 times higher than the general population. So it is supremely genetically linked. Mm-hmm. There has been, however, one change in our human species that we can attribute to adding to the number of autism cases that we see, in addition to how we diagnose it and the criteria. So instead of having PDD-NOS, Asperger's syndrome, and autism, it's all considered autism now. So the numbers look much higher. Also, people who used to just be called intellectually disabled, in old days, the term was mental retardation. They found a lot of those people were misclassified. They actually are very brilliant. I don't have mental retardation. They just can't communicate the way that we're used to in a traditional fashion, but they're very brilliant and have wonderful thoughts. And they got reclassified into being on the autism spectrum once they were reassessed. So as the number of people with intellectual disability went down over time, the number of autism cases was rising artificially because they were just shifting from one bucket to another. So that shifting effect. Then premature babies have much higher odds of developing autism throughout their life than a baby that is born full term. We are today blessed to live in a society where technology has advanced to the point where we're keeping many more premature babies alive, thriving than in days past. One of the consequences of that is that of that population of premature babies that grows up healthy and well, there is a larger number of them relative to the general population of full-term babies who will develop autism in their life. And we know that advanced age of parents increases the likelihood of autism. And these days, our society is basically encouraging people to have children at later ages based off of economic factors outside of any one person's control and personal decisions. So people are just choosing to have children later in life to enjoy their earlier years, and that personal decision. But having a child later on in life, particularly after the age of 35, 40, 45, 50, increases a child's likelihood of having autism as well. So all of these factors come into play to give us an inflated number than what we had in the past.
That is so fascinating. I have so many thoughts and so many questions about that. But it's interesting. One of the things I want to probably pull out a little bit, you mentioned, I think, is it PPMD?
PDD-NOS, pervasive developmental disorder not otherwise specified.
Oh, so that is under the spectrum of autism. That is interesting. Yes. I did not know that. And it's also maybe not necessarily, perhaps sad that a lot of people that were classified as having an intellectual disability actually had autism, and perhaps had they gotten the appropriate diagnosis and the appropriate support, they might have been able to enjoy their lives or live a more full life. But I might be wrong, but that's my assumption. Are you finding that with this more accurate diagnosis, perhaps people are having better quality of life?
So
That
earlier diagnosis and more accurate diagnosis definitely improves people's quality of life. I'm happy you mentioned that. The history of autism is a very sad history. And even the modern day discussion around autism is sad. Why? Because people with autism have been shunned as if they are outsiders out of our community, which they're not. They've been part of us the whole time. We just haven't given them a name before. We haven't given a label to their experience in the past. That's one set. Prior to the 1960s, 1950s, when early diagnoses of kids with autism were being made, it was called a childhood psychosis, similar to a schizophrenia condition, which it is not. We know now it has nothing to do with schizophrenia, not at all related. Today, if you go to several countries in Africa who believe that autism is actually a demonic possession of their child, there's nothing medically or physiologically or developmentally wrong with the child, but they're possessed by a demon. They refuse to accept that child's personality, their natural humanity. They're going to grow and develop if we accepted them and if we help them thrive in the way that they understand the world, not the way that we understand the world. So that is some of the sadness that every day I try to fight against and educate against because it is very pervasive in society and very difficult to remove.
Absolutely. And I think another question I want to ask you that you alluded to, you talked about ADHD and you seem to put it a lot in the same sentence with autism. Is there a connection? If there is, please explain what the connection is.
Big time connection. There is a large percentage, I forget the exact number off the top of my head, something like 50 to 60%, maybe might be a little more than that. A large percentage of children who are diagnosed with autism also have ADHD, so they need help to manage both conditions. ADHD and autism, from my clinical perspective, are forms of neurodivergence, so rare ways of viewing at the world, of viewing the world and living in society. So individuals with ADHD respond better to things that will give you like a stimulus and a response right away. For an individual with ADHD, it's more difficult to accept something that's going to be delayed gratification because it requires a dopamine hit to remain engaged. So a child with ADHD in a classroom who has to sit there and focus and listen to the teacher, they have to understand that while this is not fun now, I'm going to get a delayed gratification of an education in the future. It's hard for them to grasp that concept because it's very boring at the moment. So they'd much rather fidget and do something else and see it. And that's why they can sit for hours and hours on end playing video games that give them a immediate gratification of winning a level or accomplishing something new right away and not have any difficulty with focus whatsoever.
That is interesting. That is so fascinating. And thank you for explaining that. I want to deviate to back to autism, but ask a few more questions about it. Your practice is holistic. You're not just focusing on medications in terms of managing and treating your patients. I understand that you do talk about nutrition as well. So, what role does nutrition play in managing autism?
It's an excellent question. Nutrition plays a role in managing all human health, including the health and well-being of individuals with autism. So we are at the early phases now, meaning we haven't fine-tuned it yet as a scientific and medical community of the gut-brain connection, the gut-brain axis, and how diversity, my favorite word, of the microbes that live in our guts that are healthy and help us to thrive in life impact the way that our mind and emotions are feeling at any given moment. Nutrition links to all of the other pillars of health, and we see that and we feel, and we have evidence for this, that eating a whole food, plant based diet with minimal amounts of processed food, minimal amounts of animal products like animal meats and animal dairies and animal eggs, a minimal amounts of those and increased amounts of whole food, plant based food that have lots of fiber leads to overall health benefits, including psychological, mental, and developmental health overall, because when your body is not in harmony, it's not eating the food that we're naturally designed to eat, that's when you get tiredness, sluggishness, lack of focus, and your mood starts to suffer, and then they can be a downward spiral that affects your sleep, that affects your relationship with other people, all that. Now, the effect is not drastic. Like the child that's eating a less healthy diet versus a healthier diet with autism, it's not going to be like That one child all of a sudden will develop rapidly massive gains in their developmental trajectory versus the other child. It's not that drastic, but it will nudge them to help them meet their potential or not based on their nutritional status. So that's one of the linkages between diet and nutrition and autism.
Is there any research that shows probiotics might help? Because I'm hearing about probiotics in a lot of other medical conditions. So I'm just curious.
As far as the research that I have seen to date, probiotics don't currently serve any functional role when it comes to autism. And there's nothing really promising down the road that looks at the improvement of symptoms of autism. There is one compound that I have looked into that was more impressive that is found in our food. And that is a compound that is found in delicious broccoli that has helped children with autism symptoms. And the name of that compound is sulforaphane. However, one of the best sources of sulforaphane is eating broccoli, and I'm going to eat broccoli anyway because it has plenty of fiber in it. So it's a win-win. The sulforaphane in broccoli just adds to the body of evidence showing how your health and your development are affected by the food that you eat.
Absolutely. And I think I'd keep my eyes on this sulforaphane and even probiotics. And just because we still have so much to learn about how what we eat impacts our health, and the research keeps evolving. I think even up to 5 years ago, there wasn't much research in terms of, I'm trying to think of the specific condition, but I'm one of these people who would probably lean more towards the hippy dippy kind of way of treating things. But of course, with conventional medicine, it's like it pulls you back to be like, I can only recommend FDA approved XYZ. In the back of our heads, we know a lot of the medications that we give people right now. The origins were more natural sources of medication, like the willow bark tree. This is where we got aspirin from. I think it's going to be interesting to see what kind of research they come up with in the future.
I wouldn't be surprised if there are further discoveries linking specific patterns of intestinal flora with autism, because those studies have already been done and they have found that there is a gut dysbiosis that causes certain metabolic factors to be released into the bloodstream of people with autism prior to them developing autism symptoms. So it happens before they develop autism. So the question is, though, what do we do with that information? If there's a gut dysbiosis that could have preceded, is the gut dysbiosis because of some genetic factor in that person? Is the gut dysbiosis because of something environmental, or both combined? And what do we do about it? How do we keep a healthy gut microbiome? I'm 100% in support. That's part of the whole food plant-based thing. That type of diet will keep your guts very healthy, especially eating one of the plants that will keep your gut very healthy is not only green leafy vegetables, but all the bean families, the different types of beans, also full of fiber. Fiber keeps your gut very healthy because fiber directly feeds your bacteria in your intestines. Fiber is not a nutrient that our bodies can use. It's only a nutrient for the bacteria to use. And that is the ultimate form of prebiotic, which has shown constant benefit. Now, as far as using probiotic, actual organisms to add into someone's gut, that may evolve over time, but I'm quite skeptical that it will have more of an effect than what a prebiotic can do. Like actually feeding the ones that we currently have already and increasing the diversity of population that we naturally have.
Okay, that is fascinating. I almost wish we had a GI doctor in here, Vivian Abina, just to give us her point of view. I think it would be a very fascinating discussion if we can have multiple people from multiple specialties giving us their point of view.
It'll be a blast.
The next question I want to ask you is, for parents that have a child that has been diagnosed with autism, what are some of the things they can do at home to create a supportive environment for their child?
Okay, this is a loaded question that I love to hear because I have one very important piece of advice for families. It is challenging to raise a child on the autism spectrum because it is a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week job. Things that are more easy for children who are neurotypical, that are more easygoing, that you ask them to do something, that they can do it for you without as much fight or struggle. And it's not a daily no to very simple things like, let's comb our hair. No. Color no. Your job as a parent, number one, is to love your child. That all parents can check that box off, no problem. That's the easy part. Number two, because you love your child, you will not behave in a way that will harm them. So your own behavior will not behave in a way that will harm your child. What are things you could do to harm your child? Okay, I'll give you an example. You are my child, Dr. Lwanga. Child, I would love for you to please come with me to sit at the dinner table. The answer is no, or ignore it. I would like to count to three. Then I would like for you to come to the dinner table. One, two, three. Child says no, I don't want to do it. Then the parents panic. What do I do now? I asked them twice, they're not coming. Either the next step is to, I said get over here now because you're getting frustrated and you're on the clock. We got to move. We got to get this show on the road. Or there's some begging. Please, come on. I'll give you a cookie if you come on. Wrong. All those strategies are wrong. Parents should not be doing any of these things. After two times requesting something from a child on the spectrum, we no longer ask. We no longer beg. We no longer scream. We keep it neutral. We keep it 100 calm. And we go up to that child and we gently guide them to do the thing that we ask them to do. That's it. There's no more words after that. Your words need to have meaning behind them. If you say, I'm going to count to three, then you have to come to the table. Certain things are non-negotiable. Sitting at a dinner table, if that's not non-negotiable for your family, that's non-negotiable. Going to school, that's non-negotiable. Going to bed, that's non-negotiable. Other things, it's not that big a deal. Like whether they play with one or another, who cares? You have to pick your battles. In the non-negotiables category, once you reach three and your child is not going, you gently walk up to them. You give them a beautiful hug. I love you so much. Hand on their back. Let's go together. And then you walk along with them. No words have to be spoken. You should not continue to communicate with the child. When you say 1, 2, 3, at 3, you didn't do it. Now I act. Now it's my turn. Now the ball's in my court, and I gotta keep that consistently. Bring that energy every day. Keep it up. Keep doing that, and you will see that your child will respect your work. Because if you go the default route, I'm gonna scream at you. I'm gonna bribe you. I'm gonna whatever you. They won't listen to you. You're gonna get worse, and you're gonna have to seek professional help because those behaviors will become ingrained. Start early. Start young. Start at 2 years old. Start at 3 years old. Don't wait to start your personal boundary setting at an early point in life.
Wow, that I thank you for explaining it and breaking it down. It's practical, but I don't think it's easy to do because even for a child that does not have autism, that is just having a bad day, if you're still kind, you're neutral, and you still show them that you love them, but you're like, I'm picking you up and you're getting in this chair, but very nicely and consistently. It requires a lot of character development personally, then to
It's
be able
very hard. Yes. It's simple but not easy.
100%, but that's what all children need. They need consistency, they need love, and then eventually they will come along and they will learn, okay, this is a social cue. People are eating. My parents picked me up and told me I had to go eat. So it translates into adult life that I'm going to sit down and eat because this is what people do. So thank you for explaining that. It's not an easy thing to do, but thank you for breaking it down that way. Do you provide additional support? Perhaps, I don't know if this is a conventional question, because I'm thinking of the situation, say a parent comes to you and their child is still in that malleable stage, and you're seeing that they're having, the parent themselves is responding to their child in a way that is not productive. Do you provide coaching for the parent, or is it something like you just give them guidance and you let them figure out what this means for their family in terms of being a consistent, loving parent?
It depends. I don't give unsolicited advice. I don't believe in the strategies that they're using and they're happy with the results they're getting. I don't interject because my goal is to maintain a positive relationship going forward with families that they will understand that the place that I'm coming from is not a place of I know better than you, therefore you should do what I say. And then, no, that's not my approach. My approach is one of, do you feel like you're having a struggle with this? Have you tried doing it this way yet? And how did it go? Okay. And how consistent were you with that? Okay. So it's more of a Socratic, like learning about them and having them come to it's what they call motivational interviewing. I want to know where they're at because if I'm trying to do things to them, it will not work. I want to work with families and ask them how they're feeling about certain things and if what they're willing to try. They're willing to go for it. And then I ask them, is it okay if I offer you my opinion? I do not give unsolicited advice. If you didn't ask me for my advice or my opinion, I'm not just going to blurt my mouth out and tell you something. Because you're coming to me, what the traditional role of a doctor is coming to me for your health. What's my cholesterol, doc? What's my blood pressure, doc? Keep that other psycho woo to yourself. If they think that's what they're coming to me for, that's fine. That's what I'm going to give them. I'm not here to overstep. what they're expecting of me, because that's how you lose a connection and bond with your patients. And I'm not into that. My whole foundation of my practice is about connection and relationship. If there's a breakup in the connection and relationship between my patients and I, there's no point in working together.
That's fair. You have to thank you for reminding me about that motivational interview, because you're right. You have to test the waters and see how ready somebody is and what they expect of you before you try to share whatever information you
Yeah,
have with them.
absolutely. For everything, for every condition.
Very true. I have one more question for you. I think our time is coming to close, and I'm going to have you back on the show because I still have several more questions, and I
I
still
could do
want
this all day, all year long.
to. I have a lot of questions about ADHD. A lot of people have ADHD and a lot of people have so many questions. So I think we're going to have you back. But in terms of my last question for autism, what are maybe 3 myths that you encounter that people have about autism or individuals with autism?
Number one, 100% sure of this fact: vaccines do not cause autism. Number two, so the myth is that they cause autism. In reality, vaccines do not cause autism, just to clarify, in case anybody was wondering. Number two, kids with autism never make eye contact. Many patients make family feel they make excellent eye contact. The problem is the eye contact they're making, it's not functional eye contact. It's not complex. They're not using their eyes to start or stop or develop an engaging interaction with another person. That's eye contact myth. And a third myth that I often hear about autism in particular, oh, this is a big one. Autism only happens in boys. Nope, not at all. The reason that it comes from the medical establishment hierarchy, the reason that people believe that autism only happens in boys is because the type of autism we're used to seeing is the type that we see in boys. There is another manifestation of autism that happens in girls. It causes them significant distress in their personal life, their social life, their academic lives, that is now being more recognized. We're luckily reversing that trend. So there is a saying that a girl will be diagnosed with oppositional defiant disorder, anxiety, and depression before everyone realizes that it was autism the whole time.
Oh, wow.
So autism does happen in girls. Not only that, today's rates of autism are like 4 times more boys than girls have autism. If you look at the severe range of autism, what they call level 3 autism, do you know what the ratio is between boys and girls, or males and females? It's 1-to-1 ratio. So that tells me we're missing the milder forms in girls because societal expectations and culture matters here, because depending on the culture that you're from, your perception of eye contact will change. In some cultures, eye contact is respectful. In other cultures, eye contact is disrespectful. So don't you dare make eye contact with an elder. Look down right now.
100%. Yeah.
So the same is true for girls. Like for a boy to be confident and motivated, that's a great sign. He's a go-getter. For a girl to be confident and motivated, oh, you're just rude and bossy. We don't like that. So why? It's just the same thing, but the fact that you're a different gender now, it's a problem. So the same is true for autism. There's certain symptoms of autism that are seen in girls that a quiet, shy girl will be less noticed than a quiet, shy boy. That's abnormal. Why is this boy quiet, shy? We expect our boys to be loud and rambunctious and running around. Why is this boy so quiet? Well, if a girl were to do it, oh, she's a shy girl. We're used to that culturally. She don't got autism. So that's the other myth.
Oh, wow. That is so fascinating. I think we could do like a complete interview on autism and ADHD in girls alone. Even both of those could be like full episodes alone, because those are very fascinating and interesting topics, especially ADHD in women. I'm hearing a lot of women who are being diagnosed as adults, and I think it'll be interesting to see what signs they might have had as a child. But we're going to have to postpone that conversation. For those of you guys who are curious, you're going to have to come back and listen to Dr. Barayev tell us a little bit more about that. But I'm sure a lot of the audience is very interested in hearing more about you and perhaps even working with you. Where can people reach out to you?
Thank you for asking. Families, I want to tell everyone one thing. I'm currently practicing in New York State. That is where my license is. So for any family in New York State that would like to work with me and navigate autism with confidence, they can please call my office 24 hours a day. Phone number is 917-819-5056. And I have a website and a YouTube channel as well. The website is B as in boy, DPC, like direct primary care, And on that website, there's a link to the YouTube channel and all my social media. So families can find me there as well. And anyone across the world can learn more about autism and the type of services and support that I give through my YouTube channel. And I have not missed a single week of posting on that channel since over a year and a half now.
That is awesome. We will make sure that we link your website and your YouTube channel and also put your phone number or your office's phone number below this episode so people can reach out to you. But thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us. We need to have you back. There's too many questions and too many things to discuss, but I'm going to make sure to have you back. But thank you once again for taking the time out of your busy schedule to talk with us.
The pleasure was all mine as always. Namaste. The light within me sees and appreciates the light within you always.
Thank you.